That is the most important thing about social media that I think people miss.
Yeah.
The authenticity aspect of somebody's, real persona can change the way people perceive them.
Yep. Totally.
That's just the God's honest truth. I think that, and that's one of the things where I think, when I have a conversation with Alicia, she's been calling me. She's like, "No, I'm going to do something regarding the brokerage. Let me know when you have a second to talk." And I reached out to her, and then I forgot to call her back, and then she's texted me the last 2 days. It's one of those things,
of my life, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's just you get so sidetracked with stuff. I think she's going to probably follow us around, do some of the stuff outside of the.
That's fantastic.
Because that's what I need. Hey, yep. Alicia, follow Mark and I around for the next like 3 hours. We're hitting we're checking out a flip. We're hitting one of our rentals. We got a meeting with an agent. Just film some content, yep. And let's make some reels on it. You know what I mean? And that's it. Boom.
100%, man.
That's 100%. What we need. Yeah.
That'd be fantastic. And it's easier when you're like out there and you're doing things like looking at flips, looking at any sort of crappy property or anything like that. People love it, man. People eat it up.
And you don't want to I hate when it's scripted.
Yeah, no. Yeah, just let it roll.
I hate the script. The scripted stuff's the worst.
And
part.
You can tell, it doesn't even feel good when you watch it.
No, I know.
It's like we're here at this. It's like you definitely rehearsed that 27 times. Like, just be human.
What's funny? The point about that is I talked to Chris Powell. Do you know Christian Powell? Christian's one of the photographers that we use, but he does a lot of people stuff in Philly and locally here. But anyway, he said, "You're the only one that I think is like a one-take Drake. You're like you don't really care what it looks like because you know that it's authentic and the people are just gonna get the point of the video. Because most of the time when I'm doing my videography for listings, it's like, hey, this is Rob Bunis with Prime Realty Partners. We're here at such and such property. It's a 3-bed, 2.5-bath home, 1,700 square feet.
Run with
Everything's been updated. Let's go check it out. You know what I mean? Boom, we're done.
And if you say, like, who cares?
Whatever, right?
That's human.
But I've found that people, like the stories that I hear, it's like, so-and-so, I was here for 2 hours trying to record a 1-minute clip. Enough content for a 1-minute clip. It's like, we just had more great content in the last 5 minutes.
And that's what I was going to say, that there's a special power to just simply being with another person, because even though I feel the exact same way and I'll go live, I'll do whatever, I'll rap off the top of my head, like literally in front of 200 people. I don't care. I've done speaking engagements where it's like, I prepped for like 4 minutes beforehand, you know, it's like, I'm fine with that. But I still struggle with the same thing. Like if I'm recording like something that I'm like, all right, this is going to be a YouTube video, 15, 20-minute video about this specific topic, and I get like 2 minutes into it, I'm like, not even that I fumbled over words, I start like being self-conscious and I'm like, I could have made that intro a little bit better. Let me hit record one more time. And I find myself in that loop. But when you're with another person, it's like, we're going to sit down, man, and we're going to hit this. Like, let's just go. Let's roll with it.
What's been your best in terms of like public speaking? Like, what's been your best way to just go? Like, how do you're probably a good public speaker because you're a good speaker right now, right?
I don't think that I'm necessarily good at it, but I'm not afraid of it.
Yeah, so that's how I am too. But you know what? It's removing the fear from it that makes you, it gives you the capacity and confidence to go up and be like, all right, I really don't care what anybody thinks.
Right.
Guess what? If I flop and it sucks, well, guess what? It sucks.
Yep.
So what?
Yep.
Nobody's going to say anything to me about that. You know, nobody's going to be like, hey, Rob, you got to get better at public speaking. Nobody's going to say that.
Nope.
But if you go and even if you wing it and you do a good job, people remember that.
Totally, man.
You know?
Totally.
Yeah, I've got friends that are public speak more than me, that like are the most behind closed doors, most self-conscious. They're self-conscious. They lack the confidence of it.
But that's the thing. They rehearsed it 100 times
in their head,
or maybe even in front of a mirror or whatever. And like for me, I have more trouble with that. Like when I'm giving a presentation on something specifically, it's like, because again, just like that YouTube example, it's like I want to make sure that I make my message as clear and digestible as humanly possible. But if you're asking me about a story about me or what I've done in the past or my business or any of the stuff like this, it's like, I don't need to rehearse it. It's my life. I live it every goddamn day.
The funniest part about what you just said, you know what it made me think of? Remember when you were like doing a report in like elementary school or whatever, and you're like, fuck this, I'm throwing the script that I wrote away, and then you completely miss like all of the topics you're supposed to hit.
Yep.
That's what it reminds me of, because like that's usually what happens when I'm unscripted, but I still hit everything that I need to. But then I'm like, all right, there was something that I wanted to hit that I missed. I always miss it, no matter what.
It is what it is.
But guess what? It's always a clean and digestible speech that you give.
Yep.
And people remember it regardless.
Yep. That's the thing.
That's just what it is.
But I know they say, I don't know what the statistic is. I'm going to butcher it, but it's like something like 70% of people would rather die, literally die, than public speak.
Yeah.
It's like, that's crazy. That's crazy.
I'm not sure.
It's not that serious.
It really isn't. But I found that I think confidence is one of those things that people you've got to find yourself and be comfortable in your own skin. For me specifically, like I got a weird story. Are we even recording?
We're recording.
Oh, well, that's awesome. Well, maybe some of this stuff's good
maybe
content,
some of this is good and we roll with it.
Maybe. No, so what's interesting about like my background, dude, I sent away to boarding school by the time I was 11 and a half. Like I had to figure my independence out at a really young age.
Wow.
So for me, it's less confidence and more comfortability in my own skin because I had to figure it out young. So like,
you don't think they're the same thing?
I think there's a slight difference. And I think the difference is, the confidence comes from knowing that you have the acceptance of your peers and your family. I think that the other part of it is you have to be comfortable in your own shoes. But the confidence comes from repeatedly having positive outcomes from the things that you do. I think.
Okay, that makes sense.
I think that's kind of in my opinion, the overarching definition that I've at least formulated. I think
it makes sense to you. Yep.
And that makes sense to me. I think for me, walked on to 2 basketball teams that I had no business playing on because I hustled and worked my ass off more so than the other people. And it created a work ethic that I think I wouldn't have had otherwise. So it wasn't necessarily that I was confident in my ability. It was that I just knew that I could work harder than other people.
Love that.
And because of me continuously doing that, everybody knows. I was talking with people today at a little mastermind I did this morning. And they're like, dude, nobody works harder than you, which makes me proud. But at the same time, it's like, I don't want to work this hard,
I know.
But this is how, it's just what I've created, you know?
Dude, I am the exact same way. And like I've had mentors in the past basically shame me for that. They're like, you're too smart. You have too much going. Your business is too big. You can't work as hard anymore. You have to put more things in place. You have to put more people in place. You have to put more systems in place. And I did. But guess what? I still wanted to work that hard. It's like, it's how I'm fucking wired, man.
It's exactly.
So somebody kind of shaming somebody else for that, I feel like that's fucking wrong too. Because it is one of my superpowers. Do I want to work this hard for the rest of my life?
No, of course not.
But dude, I'm young, I'm able, and I generally enjoy almost everything that it is that I do. Maybe not everything.
Yeah.
We deal with a lot of difficult freaking people. We can go down that path.
We do.
But ultimately, it's like that's what I do.
I completely agree with that. And this isn't my perspective. It's shared. I think that delegation is a learned skill.
Definitely.
And, I didn't start learning it until 3 or 4 years into the real estate business. I've been in it for 8. Started buying stuff in 2018, so about 5 years ago. So the investor mindset of me was something that had to be a learned skill. So there was no delegating on that side whatsoever until the last year because I was wearing all the hats in that specific business. Mm-hmm. My real estate stuff, I didn't start delegating until 4 years ago, even though my team was open 3 years ago, the original team. The learned skill part of it had me wearing so many hats to the point where I was getting pulled in 50 directions.
Yep.
Mentally, I just couldn't handle it. And there are days where you wake up and you're like, I can't handle this now. Like, and I got to get more stuff on my plate. And you send it to Sarah, my director of operations, or I call Paul, my co-team lead and I just say, yo, dude, I need you to take this off my plate today. Or I call my wife. Jen's my backbone. I don't know what I'd do without her, but my wife handles so much more than I could ever imagine myself personally handling. And it's just, I think the only way to continually grow and work this hard, because if you don't delegate, you're going to burn out.
You absolutely have to. Yeah, there's no question. You can only get to a certain level, whether we're talking about financially or professionally or anything, and they're all kind of tied together anyway.
Completely.
But you can't achieve a certain level of scale by yourself.
Correct.
You just can't.
Correct.
Right? My philosophy has always been anything that I have to do more than 10 times in a row, across 10 transactions or whatever it is, I'm outsourcing that. I'm finding a way to systematize that and hand it off to somebody else. Because for me, like just deep within my core, I fucking hate doing the same things over and over and over again. You know, it's like my brain starts to think like the assembly line. It's like, well, if I have had 10 things happen in the same way, you know, and what I have done to overcome said obstacle was the same way 10 times. This should be a system. It should be a process.
100%.
You know?
Yeah, we're working on, excuse me, doing that with a few of the most funny tasks. One of them's hilarious, and I'm just going to say it. I'm apologizing ahead of time if anybody thinks that this is ridiculous. But the agents not reading the MLS, I spend probably 30 to 40 minutes a day. I'm literally about to get a VA.
Just to tell them what it says?
Yes.
Yeah.
So like I just can't take the calls and texts and all this stuff anymore. It's just like not necessary. That 30 minutes is valuable to me. Like
for context, dive into that because I understand it very well. We deal with the same goddamn thing, but a lot of people probably don't get what you mean.
Yeah, so like when you're talking about time, you know, and I'm going to take two avenues. I'll explain it, but I'm going to first explain why. The why behind, you know, trying to scale back my time spent on things that I shouldn't be spending my time on is because time is literally your most valuable currency. Dumb it down on a most even more linear level. At the end of the day, our time on this earth is not exponential, and that's unfortunate. I wish we could live forever. It's just not reasonable or reality. So for me, the 30 minutes that I might spend today answering text messages or taking phone calls from people that I know are not doing what they're supposed to be doing regarding my properties, I would much rather outsource to somebody paying them a couple bucks an hour, whatever it is, to field those calls so I can get that time back. And that 30 minutes may not, you know, when you think about it, somebody who might be working a 9-to-5 career path or something, you know, that 30 minutes, they don't think like that because it's a different avenue that they have chosen to take, or at least for now. When you're in business for yourself, that 30 minutes might be the only free dime that you have all day. And maybe it's not going to be 30 minutes just straight. But if it's 5 minutes here, 2 minutes here, 7 minutes here, that I could just mentally decompress in some capacity, like at least I've had 30 minutes less stress during the day. And that goes a long way for your mental state. You know, what people don't realize about the real estate business is it's a constant grind.
Totally.
If there's a deal that comes up right now, you know, obviously we're doing a podcast, but I'm calling that lead the second we walk out of this. Of course. Room, especially if it's from one of my investor sources, you know?
Yeah. It's a referral or something. It's like your name is on the line. Like,
Yeah. And who knows? Maybe I'm wholesaling it for 40 grand, whatever it may be.
Absolutely.
You know, that's a lot of money. And that might be keep the lights on for the business for the next month, you know? You know, that's the one thing. I mean, I don't know if you have anything to add about that, but the 30-minute thing, like, that's a lot of time.
Dude, totally. I mean, for me personally, it's like I have ADHD like a motherfucker, right? So like one of my biggest struggles is like once I start doing something that, you know, it takes me a lot of time to get focused on something, right? So once I am focused on something and I'm like, I know in the back of my mind, it's like, if I stay focused on this, I will be done in 45 minutes and I can move on and I don't have to touch this till next month, whether we're talking reviewing P&Ls or whatever the hell it is, right? So if it has to get done, but it takes a high level of focus. If I simply answer my phone for a 30-second call and I'm 10 minutes into that, dude, it might take me another hour to get back focused to where I can start working on that again.
On.
So, and it happens with friends all the time. Like my wife, thank God she understands the way that I am.
Yeah.
But I get people all the time that give me so much shit. They're like, dude, you never answer. It's like, you gotta, like, if I am free, I will answer. Yeah. But if I am in something, no, I'm probably not going to. And I'll get back to you as soon as I can, you know?
ADHD that is my life, what you just said. I mean, that's honestly my life. Like, the worst thing that ever happened for me, at least, is TikTok and all the Facebook algorithms and stuff like that. Man.
My life.
Yeah, somebody will send me a video. I'm like, shoot, do I want to click this video and go down that rabbit hole?
It's not just going to be one, dude.
I'm going to get stuck, man. I'm going to get stuck. Mm-hmm. So for me, you know, perfect example. It could be a Saturday. I'm catching up on some, you know, mindless paperwork that I'm not going to call my director of operations, Sarah, to go do on a Saturday or something like that. Quick addendum. Hop on my laptop. Why don't I check Facebook real quick? No, I can't do that. Like, you've got to compartmentalize that in order to get your work done. And that's why I think like the capacity for production for people with ADHD is so much higher than everybody else. Because if you can control that, turn it on.
It's a freaking superpower, man.
ADHD is a superpower. People don't realize that, but it can also be your worst enemy.
It can. And what I can add to that is like at the height of everything, when I had a crap ton of employees and I had a giant sales team and everything. It's like for probably like a 6 to 9 month period, I was effectively out of basically every role, right?
Yeah.
So I had the ability, like my entire day, I never had a schedule for anything. It was just whatever comes to me that there's an issue, somebody needs help with something, they need help with a deal, we need to put a fire out somewhere. Yeah. That's fine. That was my role and that was my responsibility. And that was the perfect time. Like anybody could call me at any time and you'd get me, right? Yeah. Because I have the ability to juggle 75 different things at the exact same time. Yeah. But when I have to do anything that requires a level of focus, man, all bets are off. And I'm like, I have to be, compartmentalized, shut myself off to the world so I can focus on
Put me in a room with no windows.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it is. Like, I just need to be shut off, and this is what I'm focused on. Otherwise, it doesn't get done. Yep. I think that's that is a extreme superpower in this business. I mean, the reason why I think most of the guys that I know that are successful in at least our spaces have some level of either ADHD or learning disability. I'll tell you that right now. Yep. I think that there are so many different reasons why those people become more successful. It's not just the hardships that they had to overcome or the adversity that they had to find solutions to overcome, but it's also the extra oomph that they end up getting. There are certain systems and characteristics people with learning disabilities have, that they have this innate nature to create solutions to. Those problems that we may not perceive as problems are, like you said, superpowers. And because of that, we've had to come up with other strategies to become more efficient. Yeah. And then we get to apply them to what we do every day.
That's right.
Not to mention ADHD people are not good with same thing every single day.
Yeah.
So for us, hey, I just got this
Getting
call.
to talk to different people, different deals, different situations.
It's the perfect business for anybody with ADHD specifically. And I think that that's probably one of the reasons why myself and you included have been so successful at it. And the one thing that I think that that has been one of my biggest difficulties is the ability to shut off when I need to shut off. That's, I think, my weakness is knowing, like, I know that I need to shut off and take a 5-10 minute break, maybe shut off at 6 o'clock and be done. But it's tough. You look at your phone and you see 4 or 5 text messages that are important. You're like, shoot, I could wait till tomorrow. Yep. It's going to be a little bit different for me in June, though. We got a little baby on the way. So,
okay. God bless.
Yeah, it's our first. So, yeah, my life's about to change. Significantly.
Yeah. God bless, man. Yeah. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's hard, though, like shutting it off. And I think there's so much, I don't know, almost like hatred about that too. Like, people that are like, you should have a work-life balance and you should have this. I think that's true to a degree, right? It depends on the individual and it depends on what it is that you're doing and everything. Correct. Like, cause like for me, I don't know, there's a lot of things that I'll say normal people do and like recharges their batteries, that for me, it's like, no, man, that kind of totally drains and depletes me and everything. Now, I think there is a happy medium and everything, but I even hate the term work-life balance,
me too.
Like, my wife has had so many friends like over the years that give her shit because they're like, your husband works so fucking much. Like, how do you deal with it? Like, you're oh my God, like, it's just crazy. You need to reel him in and everything. And thankfully, she's been resistant and resilient. And she also understands the benefit in a lot of the things that I'm doing and everything. And she resists against that. Yeah. And instead, like, the balance for me, like, I've gone through a bunch of different, like, hustle struggle phases in my life, right? It's like, oh shit, cash flow sucks for the next 3 months. I'm buckling down and we got to get this project done. I'm sleeping. When I bought this office, man, it was literally 3 months straight. I worked 7 days a week. I bullshit you not, probably 18, 20 hours a day, 7 fucking days a week. I slept on a couch in my office.
Were you doing the reno here yourself?
That's a whole nother story. It didn't start as that. I did end up doing a lot. I had a GC and everything and some things went wrong and I had 3 other giant rehabs going on at the same time. Literally, the wheels fell off of everything at the same time. I had our highest turnover with apartments all at the same time. It was
that was recent because
that was recent. Yeah, that was last year.
So you want to hear something?
That was last year.
You weren't alone. The last 6 to 12 months have been the same exact thing for me. Yeah. I had the best through September. I had the best year I've ever had last year. financially, which is great. First quarter sucked this year, but on top of my first quarter this year, it's been about, like I said, I'm doubling down to build market share because we're in a recessionary market that nobody's talking about. But you got to figure out how to capture the minds, live rent free in people's heads, right?
Totally.
So you figure out how you need to do that. But in doing that, I had 2 evictions. I only own 15 units. I got a small rental portfolio. A few of them are I own with a partner. But I've been dealing with several evictions, which we wouldn't get paid on those. Then both of those units I needed to renovate. On top of that, I had 2 other units that I needed to renovate. I had a flip going on top of that. Income's not coming in or what it was 6 to 7 months ago. I'm trying to buckle down while money is still going out. And these rentals aren't going to repair or renovate themselves.
No, and you got to get somebody in there as soon as possible because you're bleeding out if not.
Correct. So the other part of it is like, it's not that I don't have the money. The money's not allocated to go renovate a unit that has been cash flowing minimally because it's a long-term buy and hold. Everybody thinks, oh, you got rentals, you're rich. It doesn't work like that.
Yep.
Wealth is a long-term game.
That's right.
When you go to unload a portfolio in 30 years, when you're 40, 60, 70 years old, or one property a year, whatever you want to do, the outcome of that is cashing out so that you can live a comfortable retirement,
then,
right?
But it's down the road.
It's down the road. We have to hustle. And if that means working 12, 16-hour days every day until you have the ability to do that, then that's what it is. So it's been a grind and a half the last 6 to 12 months for me too. And we are just 2 people that are willing to admit it because you and I both know there's so many people that aren't talking about it. We are not alone. It is a lot of the industry right now. The real estate always gets hit first.
Yep.
Nobody wants to talk about it, and it's not going to be heard in the news because they're not going to talk about it. It's an election year.
Yep.
There are so many reasons why nobody knows this stuff's going on right now, unfortunately.
Yep.
And, you see it sometimes on Facebook, but you don't, or social media, but let's be real here. No,
it's a highlight reel, man. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's not fun. It's not,
nobody talks about their hardships enough.
Yeah.
It's like mental health, or it's like, trying to think of another example. I'm going to just talk about this myself. My wife and I do an IVF because of the fact that we lost a little one during miscarriage. It's another topic that nobody talks about.
Yeah.
There are certain things that are anything struggle related is taboo.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for society.
Which sucks. It really sucks,
right?
Because then when you are dealing with something, and first and foremost, you think that everybody else's life is sunshine and rainbows, but you feel totally on your own. Like, I'm the only one that ever dealt with this. And you're not, you're totally not.
And that's a shame because then you wonder, you hear about all the suicide in young kids now and all this stuff. And it's because of the society. And I hate to even take us down this road, but that's just the evolution of a conversation. I think it's an interesting point to talk about. We've, as a society, at least in the U.S. speaking, we've shunned talking about hardships.
Right.
So much so that going and seeing a therapist is taboo. I see a therapist. I know tons of my friends do too. It's like one of those things that you do because it's the best thing for your mental health. We're all working through childhood this, childhood that, things going on in our day-to-day, things are stressful, These are things that you should talk about. But the second you say, hey, guess what, I'm doing this, some people don't want to hear about it or this, that, or the other. It's normal life.
Normal. 100%. 100%. And there's so much more to that, right? Because just the fact of being open and willing and vulnerable to talk about it, a lot of people think, well, if I show my emotional side or my mental state or my struggles, that's me being weak. It's like, no, that's actually you being really strong because it's you saying, yo, I dealt with shit. This is real.
Yeah.
And guess what? I'm willing to talk about it, not because I want anybody to feel bad for me in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
I'm sharing it because first and foremost, it's real and it's my story and my experience.
Yeah.
And 2, and most importantly, is I want to hopefully help somebody else with my advice, with my experiences. If one person can watch or listen to something that I said about how I feel that I may have been able to minimize a downside or a risk on something that I've dealt with in the past. And this goes to talking about deals that are losers as well, or hiring the wrong person or whatever it is. I want to be able to help with my negative experience and turn it into a positive for someone else. That's the ultimate really, it's a strength. It's not a weakness.
That is so spot on. And it's funny when you were about to say that, I was thinking that I was like, that's the next thing I'm going to say. That was spot on.
Stole it from you, man.
You stole it from me, but
Boom.
no, that is spot on. I mean, the reason why we have these conversations is specifically to hopefully help other people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the rooms that we end up in with our level of success, a lot of people put us on a pedestal, but we're real normal people.
Normal people, man.
And that's the same thing that I try to tell everybody, especially, you know, agents that look at me and they go, dude, you do a lot of volume. Well, guess what? We're all in it to make a paycheck, or not a paycheck, because that's not, what's a paycheck? We don't get that. But we're all in it to try and support our families and do, you know, but, you know, my whole thing is, I'll give you the playbook, and if you're willing to work it,
that's right.
Beat me out for my market share. Like I want to help every single person that comes through the door who wants to make themselves better and have a better quality of life for their family.
Yeah, I love that.
You know, that's how I've always looked at it. Just because the hardships, at least I've gone through, and I think that, you know, one, your legacy is simply the impact that the God's honest truth is totally the impact that you have before you leave this earth. And a lot of people get fixated on, I have to have the nicest Prada bag, or I have to have the nicest pair of shoes, or the Rolex, or the, you know, it's fine to have those things. There's nothing wrong with it. But like at the end of the day, like, are you the person that's going to be hoarding the value that you can find elsewhere? Or are you going to be the person who's going to hoard it because you learn and then provide that back to other people?
Totally.
Like the value add isn't that you have people around you that are going to bring you value. It's that you have people around you that are bringing value, that if you call on them because, one, you need them for something, or two, you're like, listen, I think you could benefit from meeting this specific person because you could provide a lot of value. Is that something that you want to? I would rather bring 10 of those people around me than even one person who's selfish when it comes to providing value.
Totally agree.
That's just how I am. I learned a long time ago that there's more value in having people around you that are willing to come from a place of giving than taking.
Yep.
Because there's a lot more takers than there are givers, unfortunately.
A lot more. And just you saying that, like, there's so many people that are skeptical when they meet someone like you and they're like, wait a minute, he's going to share his playbook. He must have an ulterior motive. Or maybe he's keeping the golden nuggets out of this playbook, because why would somebody tell me? He's taken away from his market share. Why would he do that? I've had so many people over the years that are like, I know that's not really what you're doing with your marketing campaign. Or I'm like, yeah, no, this is literally the step-by-step process. This is what they're like, can't be, because why would you tell me? I'm like, but why would I not tell you? I mean, really, the truth be told is only 1% of the people are going to actually fucking do it anyway, you know? Yeah. But I will give you everything that you could possibly need to go out and be successful. 1%. And why would I do that anyway, even for that 1%? Because I want to see other people succeed. And guess what? Now those people are going to be on my team. Those are the people that are going to be in my circle. We're going to be in business for a long freaking time. We're going to end up doing deals together. We're going to end up doing partnership things down the road. And those are the people I want around.
1% will execute. Doesn't matter what plan they have, 1% will execute. That rule works in every single industry. The top producers in any space are part of that 1%. And it's very visible in our business. I mean, the number of investors, I mean, if you treat real estate agents and real estate investors as two separate spaces, you look at the models, it's almost absolutely identical. 10% do 90% of the business in both spaces.
Fair.
1% of those 10% are at the top, very top, higher level individuals that have investment companies. I'm not just talking about people that have LLCs or S corps, this, that, or the other.
Yep.
Built out structures and systems in place to get their specific time back. We're talking about the
real
owners.
Businesses,
businesses, right? And that is the difference, unfortunately, between the 99 and the 1%. And you know, that's why I'm willing to, just like you, provide the playbook. You know, I wish there was like 5%. But if there were 5% of people that were doing what we were doing, you know, there'd be a lot less deals for everybody.
That's the truth. That's the truth.
You know?
Yep.
But that's why everybody says there's plenty of business out there for everybody. I mean, I have a friend, George Beatty doesn't know this, but and I don't know that he's going to listen, but hey, bud, remember that Brookhaven deal that had a really nice margin? I bought it. So, you know, direct competition, but we're buddies. Like I helped them with their some of their MLS deals, right? So like,
It's actually super funny with George. He was supposed to be here yesterday, and he fucking canceled. He woke up with a tickle in his throat, and he had to bail. But it's funny that you bring that up because I haven't talked to George in a while. But last week, I ended up on an appointment in Philly. I never go on appointments anyway.
Property Pals was there too.
Yeah, well, one of their guys was, and they ended up offering like, I don't know, 2.5 times what we did or something. Yeah. So I was kind of breaking his balls and everything. But it's like, dude, that's all good. It's like it's friendly competition and everything. Well, look, and you beat us on this one. That's cool, man. It is what it is. But
I had an insider information, a tip per se on a deal that and it wasn't from him. It wasn't insider information about the company. It was just the guy. I didn't know that the guy was going to sell potentially to me. So I'll just give you the scoop. There was an illegal duplex, right? One of my attorneys decided that they were going to call me. I do a lot of business with him. It's estate work, elder law. That's his space. So every so often he gets a life estate or something. There was a Medicaid bill, all this stuff. Person wasn't going to make any money off the house. They just had to sell it. So I get tagged in, go to the property a few times. I keep seeing the wholesaler, direct seller marketing in the mailbox. I was the one getting the mail, this, that, and the other. So I'm perusing to see who's in there. I'm like, there's George. There's so-and-so. There's so-and-so. And, one day, the attorney calls me. He goes, listen, do you think this is a good deal? I'm like, what? Oh, you got an offer for 180. I'm like, look, Mike. I know Mike. Mike's a great dude. I'm dealing with him on the life estate. Maybe I'll buy it. I would, would he feel more comfortable buying with me? He goes, I'll let you know. Says yes. I offer him an extra 10 grand. Buy the property for 190, illegal duplex. Put 40 into it. So I'm into it for, let's just say I'm in it for 250. Put on the market for 400, sold for 425.
Beautiful.
Ripped 120,000 off of it.
Beautiful.
Right? So like to date, it's one of my top 2 best deals that I've ever done. But like, it was funny that my direct competition, George and a few other people were on it. Yep. And I've only been investing for like 5 years. So like that was one of my big wins. And I haven't really done that many deals in the grand scheme of things. But what's funny about it is like, it's friendly competition because we're all semi at the top, right? Yep. So at the end of the day, we're going to get beaten by each other every so often, but we got to be able to roll with the punches. I know that I've lost deals to them. That's why I'm also collaborating with them because a lot of the investors will, I help dispo some of their stuff. You've seen some of the stuff I post. It's not all mine.
Yep.
Agents, if you end up seeing this content, that's part of my strategy. How do you help more people? You provide solutions for more people, clients, customers, businesses. That's part of it, right? The market share that I have sometimes isn't my own direct-to-seller marketing or referral, this, that, or the other. It's, hey, I need some more visibility on this property. Can you help?
Yep.
Sure. There's a way to navigate that.
100%. 100%. I love that, man.
Yeah. And I know that you're, who is it? Is it not Steve? Who's the agent that you guys have that's with us? That Mark brought
up? Oh, Alex.
Alex, yeah, that's right. Alex, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so, I mean, you guys do the same thing that we do.
Yep. Yep.
For internally with your own business.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, so we do that with a couple of the investment companies in South Jersey, but we've my business novations have become like the new thing for everybody.
Yeah, a lot of guys are doing them, talking about them. Yep.
You know what's funny about it? I don't think really people realize how much more difficult they are.
It is.
They're much more difficult. It's a legal mechanism to try and take a fee when there's no margin. Sometimes when there's big margin, but sometimes there's like not.
It's true. That's true.
In my opinion, it's almost the last resort.
I agree. And that's why we resisted against it for a while. You know, we've done a handful of them now. Maybe we've done a half a dozen or something. But yeah, I mean, I want that to be basically the last option.
Yeah.
I don't know. And maybe it's just because we're simply not good enough at them. We haven't done enough of them. I don't know.
I don't know, man. I think, you know what I found? I found that the most creative way to do it isn't to sell somebody on it in the beginning. I think that the way to do it is to use it as a mechanism to help the seller get a couple extra dollars that they might not be able to get in any other solution method.
Yeah.
For example, seller doesn't have any money, right? You got a seller that doesn't have any money. They're asking $140,000 for a property. You say, look, it may be worth $250. I got to put $75 into it. I need to buy the property at $80 in order for it to make sense for me.
Yep.
And they balk at it and they say no. You're like, look, I might be able to offer you close to maybe the 100, 110 mark, but you need to give me the ability to market the property on the multiple listing service. And if I can get close to 160-ish, I promise I'll negotiate the repairs. If there's anything necessary that needs to be done for use and occupancy or CO, I'll handle that too. But I need the ability to market it on MLS to end user, conventional VA buyers and FHA buyers. Like that's in my opinion, it should be the last tool in the toolbox per se to try and navigate the hardship for the seller, because ultimately, whether you're an agent or an investor, the goal is to try and provide the most bang for the client's buck.
Of course.
Yep.
And
that's why I think sometimes the investment companies get such a bad name.
Yeah.
You're in it not just to make money, but to provide a solution. Mm-hmm. Wholesalers are not bad people. They're just running completely polar opposite businesses to real estate agents. And in my opinion, investors are way more smart, way more intelligent. They have way more solutions. They create way more options for the seller than an agent.
Yes.
An agent has a license to sell real estate and has no solutions.
It's funny. Like I'm sure with a bunch of your Facebook posts that you make all the time, I'm sure we can get into some heated shit about this. But just like the lack of understanding for most retail agents of not even understanding the investment world at all is like mind-boggling to me. But like, there's so many agents that I spoke with over the years that literally think that me as a wholesaler or another wholesale company is like their direct competition. It's like, no, we're basically serving a totally different client base in its entirety. In fact, one of the earliest, like the first 3 things that we ask a seller when we're on the phone with them is, why don't you list with an agent?
Correct.
Like agents always think like that we're swaying them away from that. It's like, no, that's one of the first things that we ask them why they don't do. And if they don't have much of a reason why not to go that route, we push them we literally push them that direction. If what matters to you most is getting top dollar for your property, it's in really nice condition and everything, why wouldn't you go this route? And if they have a rebuttal, they're like, I had a bad experience with this, or this is messed up, or I don't want it shown, or I'm in back, whatever it is. Okay, we might be a solution for you.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more and figure it out. But no, we actually push that direct. It's like we are not in competition with agents on the distressed side of things. I think that there's novations are kind of a more middle ground. But
I think there's a shift in mindset because of the shifting market with the NAR thing, which I
definitely want to hit.
We should hit that for sure.
Yeah.
With the skill-based market we're entering now, you're finding a little bit more agents that, at least younger agents, I think, are pivoting into the more investment space field. I think I'm seeing that at least. I'm certainly not seeing it from the older generation of realtors. I mean, the average age of an agent is 50.
Is it really? Okay.
51 was what it was last year. It might have downgraded. As people get older, they phase out. I think we just got an influx of younger people into the business. But what's still troubling to me about that is the fact that we're about to see this surge of people. It's going to be a mass exodus. Mass exodus, unfortunately. And I don't think that was what anybody intended from this lawsuit that occurred. Well, now we're going to dive into it.
Yeah. But start at the beginning, because a lot of people actually, I know for sure that most people that even have heard about it don't understand it. And even the people that I know that do understand, nobody really fully understands it, right?
Arguably, what we're going to talk about here is so cutting edge that we may not even hit the nail on the head, because, the actual settlement documentation only came out a week ago.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing. They may have reached a settlement. The settlement still has to go in front of the courts. So it's not even like, this is the fine line, this is what's going to happen. This is the settlement, this is what was agreed to. Now we have to put it into effect, right? So, it's still going to get finalized. Ultimately what happened, and this goes back a couple years back, right? I'm just going to summarize the first part. There were lawsuits specifically pertaining to one particular National Association of Realtors. We don't want to call it statute, but rule pertaining to compensation in the MLS. And a lot of MLSs have joint compensation. There were agents that were not adequately explaining to sellers what the 5 or 6% was and why it was so much, this and that. And you look at the contract or the listing contract, and it says compensation to cooperating broker. And I'm going to speak specifically from New Jersey and PA because it's in both of them. I haven't seen many other state listing agreements, but when you go in there, it spells out what compensation is being paid to the buyer's agent.
Right. Yep.
Right.
Yep. Which even the way they worded that always confused the hell out of me anytime we did a listing, but whatever.
Yeah.
Sidebar.
Yeah, sidebar note, right? But the interesting takeaway about this is that, there was so much negative connotation and background noise from sellers, I think, that felt like it wasn't properly or adequately explained. And again, a lot of agents and brokers didn't realize that this has been an ongoing thing for several years now. Some of these lawsuits have been going on for 5 years.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Now there's some copycat lawsuits that are still going to come up, but overall the NAR settlement had a few things. One, they protected a lot of the agents and brokerages and brokers by simply stating and negotiating. Obviously, it's a $418 million settlement.
It's a big one.
Well, what's funny about it, apparently that's only about 1/10 of what it was supposed to be.
Really?
So the full lawsuit was for sufficiently more. They settled. So $418 million over the next 4 years, right? More interesting part about that is that there were certain things, protections that were negotiated. One being that any brokerage that did volume of less than $2 billion is apparently not necessarily going to be a focus of, I guess, contention pertaining to what activities they had. And again, I'm trying to go off of my memory here. The other part of it was any association-owned MLS would be potentially subject to the lawsuit. And in addition to that, what was it, Home something of America? I'm trying to think of the specific. There's a specific brokerage that was like the main focal point. They were not removed from this. But the NAR protected, I'd say, 90% of the market. They did a really nice job protecting real tours. Again, if you weren't a National Association of Realtor member, this really doesn't affect you. And that's a whole nother avenue I could go down about being a member of the board and what, being
Is
a
it
member
even
of the
possible
NAR.
not to be?
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, you know why a lot of people don't do it? It's specifically in New Jersey. There's only one board there's only one association that's not a member of the board, and that's Ocean City, I believe. The reason why is because NAR has a monopoly.
Right, of course they do, yeah.
The monopoly is simply that you have, in order to have access to the docs as a broker, you have to be a member of a local board, which means you have to be a member of the National Association of Realtors. Join NAR, you join your board, then you get access to the docs. It's no different for broker or agent. Obviously, you got to hang a license with a broker. If you're a broker, you can open your own office. But if you open your own
When you say docs, to interrupt you real quick, you mean what does that mean? What docs?
all the realtor documentation from PALS in PA or New Jersey Real Estate Commission issued docs. So the problem with that is you can go have your attorney drafted. It's going to cost you $35,000, $30,000 to do it. So when you're a startup brokerage, if you don't become a member of a board, you now have no access to any of the formal paperwork that you really should use.
So a hypothetical question, because this is new to me. I didn't know this side of it. Like, in theory, if somebody already had a copy of, just to dumb it down to my level, like Pennsylvania or New Jersey agreement of sale form from the board, you have that and you use that, but you're not a member. Does that just mean that you don't have their protection in the event of a lawsuit? Or because
you don't have permission,
I'm pretty
to
sure
even use
I'm not
it.
a member of the bar, but I've definitely used the PAR form before.
You're technically not even given permission to use it.
Really?
I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't. I mean, it's
Interesting.
used all the time, but you don't technically have permission to use it. I mean, look,
Interesting.
That's just the God's honest truth.
I just
It's
incriminated the fuck out of myself.
No, not really. I think it's just not easily. It's the fact that it's not easily accessible, right? So, like,
Okay.
that you could get a copy and use it. It's still a functional state AOS, but at the end of the day, as a brokerage, you can't be providing your agents with state forms to utilize when you're not a member of
That makes sense.
the state board
That
or
makes
the
sense.
state the state or local association.
Got it.
So Ocean City has their own docs specifically written up for Ocean City. The other benefit, it keeps outsiders out. So you've only got a couple brokerages that function in Ocean City. Now, a lot of agents can still do business down there, and it's in that board's best interest to provide cooperating broker fees to other agents. But a lot of stuff gets double-sided in town because they know, hey, I'm going to go to this specific, agency. Now one of the other things that you're going to find in Jersey because of the, let's talk what the outcomes could be.
Yeah, definitely.
Because And again, I think I did a really crappy job of summarizing potentially the whole lawsuit just because it's a 400-page document. They've summarized it in 5-minute intervals on the NAR website and butchered it across the news media. They've just given it's a bad time to buy. Agents are going away. This, that, and the other. All of it's false news, unfortunately.
Right.
But here's what's going to happen, in my opinion. One, because of the NAR lawsuit, you're going to have a lot of, it's about commission. It's going to get more difficult to make money in this field. People are going to be negotiating harder. Part of the problem was that nobody was saying, hey, it's a negotiable fee. Mm-hmm. It should be something like this. My fee is X, and here's why. I'm going to provide marketing. I'm going to do target advertising on websites. I'm going to do videography. I'm going to be negotiating on your behalf, and I'm going to have a lot more time into this than you think, and you break it down that way. On top of that, my fees to my broker are X. When all's said and done, after breaking down all the fees, this is what I'm probably going to be left with from this transaction after I pay my taxes, this, that, and the other. Agents are not transparent. That's the God's honest truth. Mm-hmm. So the question was, where are all these fees going? Why am I paying a buyer's agent? Well, let's talk about that for a second. If you're a seller and you're not paying a broker, if you're a seller and you're not negotiating a good enough commission that the listing agent can pay a cooperating broker, you're now limiting the buyer pool, because if we take the direction that NAR is pushing, this lawsuit has pushed us in, not NAR. Buyers in FHA, VA, and let's say USDA predominant markets who typically have less money to put down, a lot of times using seller credits, have poor credit, all this stuff. Those kinds of that financial box limits your ability to now pay for an agent. So
of course,
let's just say that because of the fact that buyer's agency is going to be a thing that is every broker, if they're not doing it already, is going to make it mandatory. You have to have the buyer agency form signed so that you're protected if the seller's not willing to provide a listing agent isn't providing cooperating commission. That form is going to protect you so you can go to your buyer and collect. Doesn't matter how you explain it as long as it's right, but you can also say, listen, explain to your client on this listing that specifically says, compensation 2.5%, compensation 3%, whatever it may be.
Yep.
You're not going to have to pay on this. And it may deter a buyer from looking at a specific house because the listing agent isn't offering a compensation model. And that's fine, but you have to have that signed. But in those markets, VA, USDA, FHA, you're going to have so many people that can't afford the homes.
Of course.
Skill-based market, right? So the listing agent has to say to the seller, listen, you're not going to like what I have to say here, but you're going to have to buck up here, because if you give me 3% on the listing side, I can't afford to provide compensation to a buyer broker. And as a result of that, the only way we're going to get this deal done is if a buyer is going to come direct to me, or the buyer is going to go get another agent and they're going to have to afford to be able to pay you. That concession that they may need for 3% on a conventional loan, 6% on a USDA, 6% on an FHA, 4% on a VA, so on and so forth, I could go down. Whatever that percentage is, if the agent is going to get paid on the buy side and there's no listing fee, well, guess what? Now they have to come up with the concession as well as the fee. And they already don't have money, and that's why they're asking for the concession.
That's right.
So now you're like, your buyer pool just maybe went from 60% of potential buyers to maybe 40% or maybe 30% in some cases, right? If we're talking about low interest rate markets, who knows what's going to happen? The rates have to come down at some point.
Yep.
They're never going to come down to what we saw the last couple of years, right? When it was sub 4. But even if it comes down to 5, I think you're going to see a little bit of a refi boom. Who's to say that you're not in the same situation? All these buyers come to market and they're for the first time in massive bidding wars, trying to beat each other out with concessions that, they previously wouldn't have had to get in order to pay their agent, or they're going to go direct to seller. Now, here's the other part nobody's thinking about, and it just occurred to me while we're talking about this, that imagine how much more liabilities now are going to be on guys like me that list a lot of houses.
Of course.
Somebody comes to me, they want to go direct to seller, but I can't provide, if they may not want disclosed to the agency, well, I'm not showing up to that, sorry for my language, I'm not fucking showing up to the home inspection for that buyer if they're going to be a sub-agent to the seller and don't want my representation. I need disclosed to the agency at that point.
Yep.
And I want them to sign a waiver saying, I'm not going to do X, Y, Z things, get an attorney to handle X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Because I'm not going to be responsible for the liability of representing both parties. If you're just
but as long as you have your ducks in a row contractually, that kind of mitigates a lot of the potential risks that you would have. But a lot of people aren't even going to know or be trained to do so.
That's going to be a monster task in of itself, because of how many people have gotten in this business in the last 5 years that thought, this is a great paycheck. It's quick. It's easy. The 1% rule still works. 1% of people execute and get it done. 10% do 90% of the business. And the other 90 might do a couple deals a year. Well, here's the problem with that. You've ousted the public knowledge is now, or will be soon, because once the news breaks, it only takes time for people to become educated. When people start realizing that they don't have to pay a potential commission, then what? It's not that buyers' agents are going to go away. It's that buyers' agents are going to have to get more skilled.
Yeah.
Listing agents have to get more skilled. Guys like me.
Well, it won't mean that they go away. A lot will go away. Yeah. A lot simply will not adapt, will not overcome.
I'm saying specifically the buyer agent role, because I think there's a lot of people that are thinking, buyer agency will go away. That'll never go away. The number of buyer agents will go away. You're going to have mom and pop buyer agent brokerages pop up. They're already in other states. You've got designated agency brokerages. You've got all these different things that we don't see in PA and New Jersey, unfortunately, in other states, just because of rules and regulations that are state state to state. Because what do you anyway? I don't want to digress because there's one other point I want to hit here. The interesting thing about what's going to happen here is that with all these broker models popping up, and because of you've got all of these desk fees, this, that, and the other, and all these big box brokerages, which have been on the decline for the last 5 years. Independents have outpaced growth compared to the big box brokerages.
Interesting.
Which is a true point. But here's what's really bad about this. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt the big box brokerages, which is not good, because they hold the key to the castle to the majority of these agents. A lot of these brokerages rely on the $100 a month to keep lights on, right. $50,000 a month that goes towards salary. So $600,000 a year, right? You may have 4 or 5 salaried employees for each office. Before that, $600,000 was probably profit, or barely keeping the lights on, but they're in the green already by the end of the year because of that. All the agent incomes, to a certain extent, are just bonus. But when you reverse engineer that and take that $60,000+, whatever, and it may be the $100 a month from 500 agents, a shitload of money. But if you're looking at that $50,000 a month, that's immediate overhead that you're going to have, and it goes away. Now what? So does the support that you can provide your agents. So does a lot of the other tools that you're providing your agents. All that stuff ends up hurting. And on top of that, coupled with the number of agents that are going to leave the business simply because dues and association dues and NAR dues will have to go up.
They have to, right?
They'll have to go up just because there's less agents. The barrier of entry is going to get a lot taller. Models are going to hurt. The business models for brokerages are going to hurt.
That makes sense.
And that is, I think, the biggest takeaway here. The landscape of the real estate brokerage industry and broker models are going to, this lawsuit doesn't scare guys or girls like me, because we know that we're capable of continuing to be successful and pivoting and evolving and adapting when you need to do so. But because of this lawsuit, I think that it's going to be a very short time before we start seeing the reality of this situation, which is people are going to hurt. And you know what's even more bizarre about it? The fact that everybody bought under 4% and or refinanced under 4%. We already have the lowest inventory that we've ever had.
Right.
So it's almost an evening of the game, because there's too many agents right now to support the inventory that we have. So not that this lawsuit, it's not a good thing for anybody. But if you look at how economics work, there's always a leveling of the playing field.
Of course.
In every field industry.
Balance, yep.
So the lawsuit
That's why
happens.
cycles exist.
Yeah. And we're in, when was the last time we had a correction?
Well, and I mean that's the thing. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm a big conspiracy theorist on a lot of things, but I really feel that I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but I think everything that's happening right now with the NAR lawsuit unfolding the way that it is, and the timeline, and just the economic status of where we're at, and housing and where it's at, right? Like they just released, I think it was last month, that home sales were down 27% or something. Yeah. And it's like, so now you throw this in on top of everything, and but putting all of the pieces together, right? Like, why would somebody want to sell right now that bought in the last 5, 7, 8, 10 years or whatever at a really low interest rate, buy at a high rate, put all of these factors together, an election year, all of this. I don't know, man. I think there could be something more to it, You know what's
really unique about what you just said? You just took us to like a perfect segue. You and I specialize, or you specialize specifically on wholesale. I specialize on market, but at the same time, we specialize in the same thing. I just happen to be a licensed realtor. Most agents, and specifically most agents, but wholesalers already do this. This is why you guys, in general, have a way better skill base than the average agent. I just happen to be one that specializes in relocation, inheritance, divorce, estate, foreclosure, sheriff sale, short sale, all that stuff, right? Where we've been functioning and literally living between the lines our entire careers. Yep. The agents that are going to be leaving this business are the ones that don't have any of those skill sets.
That's right. Yeah, more of those skills will be a necessity. They're going to be required for anybody.
The days where the turnkey house goes on the market and it sells immediately are soon to be over. And that's just the unfortunate. Think of it this way. The potato famine in Ireland. 30 years, kids couldn't move out of their parents' house till after 30. They weren't buying houses till 35. There's a reason for that because of how bad the economy was, and it took so long to get in the financial position to do it. It's the exact same thing. Here, we have sub 4% interest rates for a 3-year period where everybody and their mom decided they were going to refi or buy. And now we're in a position where ending our lawsuit's going to force a lot of the agents out of the business and create a level playing field where the skill-based agents really dominate.
Yep.
It's great because it increases profit margins for boutique brokerages like a Prime Realty Partners and agents specializing specifically in that field. Agents that are heavily on Zillow leads, for example, without Zillow Flex, gone. Those teams are going to go. I think they're going to be some of the first to take a hit unless they shift their model to be a little bit more sustainable. I know agents that have 30-some, I know teams that do almost 100 million in volume that have 30 agents on their team, and their model is strictly Zillow referral. Like, that's great until the Zillow referrals go away. And guess what? The buyers aren't going to be buying the same way that they've been buying for the last 116 years that NAR has been around. It's just not the case. The market has shifted so much, unfortunately, for people that don't consider this a serious career. But for those that are in it to win it, like, it just got a hell of a lot more lucrative long term if you could stomach the pains that we're going to see over the next 5 years, in my opinion.
Yeah. Let me ask you something else.
Yeah.
So again, to dumb this down to my level, like, one of the issues potentially for a buyer now, let's use a $100,000 house as an example, right? Buyer wants to buy a $100,000 house today, right? Or say 6 months ago for the ease of it. Well, when they're offering that $100,000, let's just say you're the listing agent, right? It's like, cool, 6% is what you negotiated with them. You're taking 3, buyer's agent's taking 3. Wonderful. So I make that $100,000 offer. I go to my bank, and for the ease of the hypothetical, let's say my mortgage company pays title company $100,000. Out of that, the commissions are distributed, right? So the way that I'm interpreting some of it right now is like, okay, well, if it's that same $100,000 house, I go to make the offer, and the seller has a listing agreement saying that they're only going to pay 3% to you, and then the buyer needs to pay whatever they negotiate with their buyer's agent. Let's just say that it's 3% again. But as it stands right now, and this is probably rhetorical because we're not there yet, but I guess one of the issues is the buyer would have to pay that $3,000. They couldn't essentially roll it into their mortgage.
Interesting point. So you're going to see, so you can.
They're going to have to.
They're going to have to. You're going to have to finance this. The question is going to be whether or not the banking rules and regs, all right, and this is nationwide. It's not just state to state. It's whether or not Fed is going to federal banking. I forget, what is it? Is it the whatever that department is?
Yeah, I don't know.
That specific department is going to have to agree to, in my opinion, increase the.
It's what's already been, essentially. It's what it has already been. So why can't we just roll our commissions into there? It's how it's been.
Right. I think that there's going to be a rule where it's like you can roll the commission in and finance it. However, had this conversation with somebody yesterday. There's a pro and a con of that. There's a pro and a con. Here's the pro. One, you get the house. Great. You need a 6% concession because you're FHA. Maybe they give you the ability to pay 2.5% to your broker because in any event, what happens when the buyer is now immediately underwater in a declining economy and they buy that house for $100,000 and they get the 6% concession. So what, 90, 94 minus 3%, 91, right? Plus closing costs, all this stuff. But they're at $91,000, right? So they only got $9,000 in equity. Okay. Sorry, they've got $6,000 in equity because they only got $6,000 in equity. But here's the problem with this whole thing. Tomorrow they need to sell because of a hardship. They're now already underwater. Mm-hmm. They are already underwater.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's an even bigger issue, right? It's that compounding effect. And I've had so many conversations with different landlord buddies of mine over the last year, right? Like you were talking about turnover and everything. Like so many guys that I know that own a lot of properties, they kind of like put their own positive spin on it. They're like, yeah, I've had more turnover than ever, but I had a tenant in there that was paying $1,200. Sure, I had to spend $5,000 on the turnover, but now I'm getting $1,900. I jumped from $1,200 to $1,900, and this is great. It's all gravy. And in the back of my mind, it's like, okay, maybe like if you screened your tenants well, which is a whole nother thing. Most guys don't screen well at all. They don't catch any of the stuff. There's so much tenant fraud right now. It's fucking mind-boggling.
I've only bought 2 properties that I haven't had to evict somebody from. So unfortunately, most people don't know how to vet.
Yeah, and I'm not great at it either myself. It's like we're not.
Tough.
It's really hard. Like, and I think the amount of fraud is going to increase even more with technology and everything. Mm-hmm. It's wild. But so I think the underlying issue is even if you do a good job screening and you place good people, good tenants, have jobs, can afford it, they make whatever 3x or greater. What's the likelihood that they're going to be able to continue affording that when the economic trajectory that we're on continues, right? Inflation continues at the pace that it's been, right? And jobs are not paying more, right? People are generally not making more, and definitely not in a linear fashion to what's happening with inflation. So maybe it's 3 months down the road, or maybe it's 3 years down the road. But when the cost of living for those families that are barely scraping by, I can guarantee you they're going to pay everything else before Rob, my asshole landlord. They're paying their cell phone, they're paying their electric, they're paying everything else, and you are last on the list.
Correct.
So how long is it really going to take until that's a massive issue? And that doesn't just, that analogy, I don't mean it just for renters and tenants and everything. It's the same thing for people buying homes or people that already have a home, right? Yeah. Everybody, whether they admit it or not, is feeling the economic pressure of everything that's happened. Yep. And the ones that haven't yet, they will, like you said, like everything that the Fed did with, raising interest rates and everything, like their direct goal was obviously to impact the real estate market, right? And there's going to be a trickle down effect as a result of that. And that might take time. Mm-hmm. So I have buddies like in other industries, like, they're like, oh man, everything's great. Business is booming. And it's like, yeah, but dude, just keep a finger on the pulse because it obviously already hit the real estate market like they wanted to. there's going to be a trickle down effect as a result of it. And I don't know. I don't have a freaking crystal ball. I don't know when it's going to be, but there's going to be an impact in every industry.
Put your money away. That's just what I'm saying, man. I'm telling you right now, there's a time to be liquid. There's a time to not be liquid, and you can always not be liquid to a certain extent if you have it in investments. Like, I'm never going to unload my real estate. I'm just going to hold it. If it sustains, fine. Do I have to put extra work into it? Fine. Yeah, that's fine. But I'm going to keep money on the sidelines because I got to pay my bills to keep the lights on for my family.
Yep.
But to answer not to go back to the point about the rents and the tenants, like, one of the first things I do when I screen a tenant is I not only do the background check and all this stuff, I want to see them face to face. I want to have a conversation. So have a conversation, that's huge, right? So we do that, get to know them a little bit. I'm a pretty good read after 5-10 minutes. I'll be able to feel somebody out. But the interesting thing for me is take it a step further. Once you lock them in, bring them a case of water. If they're over 21 and they drink, bring them a bottle of wine. Hey, welcome. Just want to let you know, I'm going to probably be one of the best landlords you're ever going to have, maybe the best, but the only thing I have to say is if you respect me, I'm going to respect you. And if there's any time that you need anything, you call me. You just leave it at that, because I want the expectation set that if, say that there's a financial downturn and they lose a job or this, that, or the other, I'll get you back on a payment plan, whatever we have to take, but I need the fucking mortgage paid. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And they have to communicate, which is one of my biggest things always. It's like everybody deals with stuff. That's fine, but communicate, let us know.
Would you rather the mortgage get paid or would you rather go into default? It's, in my opinion, not as important. I would love cash flow because it gives me the ability to maintain a property.
Of course.
Right? Anybody who bleeds their properties free, just free and clear of all capital, in my opinion, isn't handling this business the right way. I personally I've cash out refied one of my properties, that's it, but it was to get a lower rate during the boom. Mm-hmm. So like I'm not out here trying to bleed my properties dry and like break even on the monthly. I've got cash flow. It sits in it. I've never taken a disbursement in the last 5 years from anything. The reason that is the case is because I have my active income. That income's meant specifically for emergencies on that specific property.
Yep.
So, I would rather have money in that account, but I'd also rather the mortgage get paid and not have an extra couple $100 sitting in the account each month if it's going to cause me to go into default.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's just my opinion on it.
I'm with you, man.
Yeah.
I'm totally with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to the NAR thing real quick, like what do you think, you kind of touched on it from the industry perspective, but what do you think the outcome will kind of be for buyers or sellers a year down the line?
I don't know what there's going to be, just like anything, right? There's this like infancy period where like there's an epic distrust, right? But I think the long-term effect of the NAR lawsuit is that because of it being a skill-based market and the need for people to go and learn the harder lessons that you need to learn to be an agent in this market, there's going to be a higher level of consumer trust down the line. And that's what I see.
What does that look like? Like for somebody that you're trying to help them, you're trying to coach them and trying to make them resilient enough to withstand what is going to come. What do you tell that person? How do they elevate themselves as an industry professional to withstand
So it's tough. That's a really tough conversation. I have a lot of agents that I'm seeing visibly struggle already with the recessionary economy that we're dealing with right now. And they're already struggling. I know if I'm struggling to obtain the same level of income that I've had over the course of the last couple of years, I know that other people are. It's just what it is. But the agents that have come to me and that I've been coaching, I'm telling them to not let that overarching feeling of the whole real estate business crashing down on you, don't let it impact you. Put in the work still. You're laying the foundation for what the next 2 to 5 years is going to be for your business. And that hasn't changed. But you have to focus on the relationships that have paid dividends over the course of your career. Go back to the basics. A lot of agents in the last 5 years stopped doing that. Business was easy the last 5 years. Nobody knows how to work anymore because of it.
Yeah.
You got lazy. But you've got to do stuff like this.
Right.
We're out here having a conversation to get to know each other better and all this, filming some content in the same, at the same time, but at the same time, forging a better relationship so that we can provide value to each other in some respect down the line.
Yep.
These are the conversations that don't happen enough, I think, within my industry. So I'm telling agents to do this stuff. You're not going to see an immediate dividend. It doesn't work like that. It's just like the stock market. You put money in the stock market and it's a 20 to 30 year game.
Right.
You can't make a lifetime worth of income overnight. It just doesn't happen. You can gradually invest in that direction, and hopefully within 5 to 10 years, maybe you've tripled and quadrupled what you were earning in the beginning. But in order to get there, you really have to lay the foundation and do the work.
Yep.
You can't have success without work.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's one of the pieces that, I don't know, I've had so many people over the years come to me asking for advice, mentorship on different things, right? And anytime that I kind of sniff out that there's a ridiculously high level of laziness in that person, first thing, I'm like, I can't help you. I don't know. I can't help you. Like, there might be an easy button. There might be an easy way to be in the investment side of things and work 4 hours a week and make a couple $100,000 a year. There might be. I'm not that guy. I don't do that. That's not what I do. Yeah. I can't help you. Honestly, I cannot help you. I know there's books on that stuff. I know there's people out there selling that dream. Maybe it's a fallacy. Maybe it's real, but it's not my experience, so I can't help you with it.
There's plenty of gurus preaching it, but I've never seen it specifically. Yeah. There's a way to get big enough by putting the work in to delegate and take a back seat so that you have...
Of course.
But that takes work.
It takes a lot of time.
A lot of time, Working the 18-hour days that you're talking about, and, all that stuff gets to the... that's retirement, taking a royalty. When you get to a point in your career where you can take a step back, get your people paid first, because you don't get paid first, they do. Make sure the lights are on in there, where they are, and then if there's residual, guess what? You get to pay yourself. But that's the one thing. I think that to the laziness point, I think that the unfortunate philosophy that I've taken over after years and years of trying to help people is just understanding that either have it or you don't. And the other part of it is the simple fact that there's no shortcut. And that's what people are looking for.
There's definitely no shortcut. And I would say there's almost like, the way I look at it is like kind of two traps, right? The first trap is you want to have a big enterprise. Yeah. You want to have a big company and everything. Yeah. So you already know, I need people, I need teams, I need systems, I need software, I need all of this stuff. It has to come together. It has to tie together, because this is what I want to grow. This is what I want to do. The second one, though, and the first one is kind of almost the lesser of two evils. I think fewer people fall into that category, because many people are like, oh, if I can make a couple $100,000 a year and kind of just be small and keep it all, that's what I wanted. I don't want to deal with all that bullshit headache. But those people, the trap that they fall into is constantly hearing all this stuff of, well, even if you're making a lot of money, that's tied to your time. Right. So you have to create systems and processes and outsource things. So a lot of those guys, and I've seen it so many times over the last couple of years, it's like the guy that was making a couple $100,000 by himself, and he's like, well, I don't want my income to just be tied. What if I go on vacation for 3 weeks? I want to be able to continue to make money, right? I want this thing to continue on. So they start to go down that path of hiring and systems and processes and spend a lot of fucking money in the process, right? Yeah. Because growth is expensive, no matter how you look at it. Hiring people is expensive. You have to grow as an individual. You have to grow as a professional, and talk about being no shortcut, right? So I don't know. At the end of the day, it's like, even if you do a fantastic job and do set everything up perfectly, I've seen it personally more times than not where that plan goes to shit and the person gets burnt out and they're like, man, 2 years ago, I was happier. I was by myself. I was making all this money hand over fist. And now for the last 2 years, I've been stressed. I'm growing. I'm making less money than I ever did anyway. And they kind of realize at that point too, that it's like, well, I really think if I did go on a vacation for a month anyway, even though I think I did a really good job, the wheels would fall off, and they fucking would. Yeah. Like, no business can eternally sustain without you. I think that's the biggest lie that kind of pisses me off about that, because it's like people are out there selling this dream of, well, build something that can run without you. It's like, no, motherfucker, put in the work. Yeah. If you want to retire, get to the point where you're ready to retire and you're done, right?
And the time is what you can't get back. And the other part of it is, you know, a lot of these guys that are doing this don't tell you they have multiple income streams. It's not their primary.
Yep.
For the guy that's just doing the one linear model, which is, all right, I'm going to only sell houses, for example. Yes, you go away, you're done. You're not going to make money while you're gone unless you're on that phone. Mm-hmm. For me, at least, I've got the multiple income streams because I have my flips. I've got my rentals. I've got my team. I've got my solo agency, soon to be brokerage, title company, all that jazz, right? So when you look at it, you've got to set yourself up so that you have different buckets.
Right.
You know, not every bucket's going to be making money every day. It's just how it is. But if I want to go and take a vacation, hey, Mark, guess what? I'm going away for a week. Can you, my phone's going to be off pretty much. Go for it. Hey, Paul, here's what I need you to do while I'm gone. Hey, Sarah, I'm going to tell everybody to call you, you know. And then you go away for a week, you shut off, you come back, rejuvenated. You made some money while you're gone, you know.
Yep.
And you're good. But that takes so much time.
It takes time.
It's
and a lot of people
expensive.
don't want to put in the effort. And I don't think it's not for everybody. No. It's not for everybody.
I'll tell you right now, my overhead costs a month are not just, I told you earlier, it was like 10 grand in marketing, but it's like when you break everything down, like it's, you know, you guys have a lot of direct to seller marketing, which is way more expensive than the stuff that the agents have to do, right? But you're ripping way, you know, there's bigger fees on what you guys do, but there's a hell of a lot more overhead, which is something that I think people forget about.
Yeah.
If you build your business like I did, you're highly referral. Like I got 7 million in volume in the pipeline. You know, even if it's at 2.75% overall, you're talking about a couple $100,000 in business coming, you know, over the course of the next 6-7 months, which is great. But then I've also got paid staff. You know, some of the volume that people see, they don't realize that I'm splitting with Paul specifically to delegate get my time back, you know? So like there's a lot of things that go unseen in building up your company so that you can, I'm going to take a step back. I need some time, you know?
Yep.
That's the income streams are important. The time is important, delegating that. And we, unfortunately, once you get in our positions, you pay to get your time back.
You do. You totally do.
You know?
You totally do.
Yeah.
I want to touch on that. I'd be bummed if we didn't at least talk a little bit about the social media side of everything,
Let's
you know,
do it.
because obviously like you are very active on social. You are outspoken is probably a safe and fair word for that,
very
right?
Fair. Yeah.
How much of that is just like truly who you are and your thoughts and your opinions, and how much of it is like, yo, I know if I say this, it's going to trigger some people and it's not wrong. And it's going to garner a response.
I would just say straight up that none of it, I'm the most impulsive, authentic person in the world.
Love authenticity.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I am who I am. And I recognized a long time ago, years ago, that if you drew a line in the sand and there's 50% of people that are going to like you and 50% that are not, I'd rather put myself out there so that the 50% that are going to like me see me. I'd rather be visible. And when it comes to business, that is one of the most important things that you can do to build exposure and create an audience.
Yeah.
So when I started in this business, I remember I was everywhere. I was even on Craigslist doing advertisements.
Really?
It was weird. I could go down. That's another story for another day. I sold a rental to somebody through Craigslist that's now married to one of my best friends. So like,
really,
I've got some I got some weird stories. One of my other good friends I also met off Craigslist, which is hilarious. And, you know, now he sends me business. He used to be in the car business. Now he runs an organization called, I'm blanking. I can't believe I'm blanking. I'm sorry, Troy, if you're watching this. But yeah, he sends me business. I donate to his charity. You know, so like there's
awesome.
a lot of things that have come organically from me just putting myself out there. But the social media aspect, I just learned a long time ago that like people are going to like you or they're not.
Yeah.
I'd rather people know where they. Let me put this in a different perspective where I put it that way. If you're talking to somebody and you get this weird vibe from them, like, I'd rather know where I stand with people.
Totally.
And be 100% transparent with somebody. And say,
it shortcuts the kind of getting to know you process, right? It's like you came in here today. We have talked before and everything, but we never met face to face.
Yeah.
But there's a feeling of, well, I already know this guy.
Yeah.
Right? Because you share who you are, what you do, and,
Yeah.
and you're real and transparent.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that I love too. Actually, there's somewhat of a downside to it.
Totally.
I'm sure you've experienced this as well. Like, it makes me so uncomfortable when somebody comes up to me and I've never met them, but they're talking to me as if they know everything about me. And then I finally get to the point where I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. And they're like, oh, we've never met, but I've watched, 30 hours of your stuff. But that's the thing. They feel like they do know you,
It's a very awkward conversation when that happens. And unfortunately, it happens more often than I would like
we
to
are
admit.
far, far less than famous, right? So that's why it doesn't even make sense and click in my mind,
For us, I think it's at the point where like we're visible on social media because we know that it benefits our business, but also like, it's fun. Like doing this kind of stuff and filming a podcast isn't just for business. We get to know each other. We get to have conversations that we're not just going to sit in a room and have organically,
Yep.
These aren't forced. This is an organic conversation, but we're in a setting where it makes us have them. And
that's why I love it so much, man.
I know.
That literally everything about this model, and again, like we were talking before, that's one of the reasons that we are doing it for other people and making it incredibly affordable and everything, because it's such an important thing. And the whole thing, like when you look at it from a 60,000 foot view, what is it? Well, you get to sit down with people that you want to sit down and have conversations with about things that you want to talk about. You're strengthening the relationship with that person. So you're probably going to end up doing business back and forth. You're also creating content at the same time where that content, by the way, we have another deal right now that literally came from an organic,
it's awesome,
not referral, but like a lead of a guy that was watching my YouTube content. We're going to make 40 grand on this deal.
That's awesome.
Like zero ad spend.
That's awesome.
And it's creating
opportunity.
And not just opportunity, right? It's making your, like I just mentioned, like it's showing people who you are, which shortcuts the getting to know you phase and everything, and just everything as a whole. Like it's awesome, man.
Let's talk about that. The perception of success that comes off of the social media, and bring us back to what we were talking about before, which is like the people don't hear about or talk about the hardships because it's not something that gets talked about. But like, social media, the one thing that I love about it is that you can be who you are, or you could be you don't have to be who you are, but I'd rather be myself specifically for that reason. We get to showcase who we are so that it makes it easier for people to relate to us on a daily basis, in person, on the phone, all this stuff.
Yep.
Hey, Drew, did you check out Rob's, post that he put on Facebook? I know it was super controversial, which is like most of my stuff. But like, somebody might call you and be like,
"Is it?
Dude, it's actually spot on accurate, but his delivery sucked." Like,
or the delivery was genius.
Yeah, or it was genius. But here's what's funny about it, right? Like, not just my stuff, but the perception of how you post, has a big impact on how people perceive you.
Yep.
Which is why, some of my stuff is so impulsive. I'm going to talk to that for a second. Some of my stuff is so impulsive just because spur of the moment thought, all right, this is going to be a good social media post. I don't think of the repercussions of it. I throw it up there anyway. Oops. It's intentional, but it's also strategic, because sometimes bad publicity is good publicity. People don't realize that, but it's honestly mind share. I want to spend as little money as I physically can on the leads that I generate for my business. So if I could make people think of me first as the go-to real estate agent or the guy to call when you have a serious problem that includes real estate, then I'm going to make more money off of it that way, because I don't want to spend the 500 plus for Google Click PPC. I don't want to have to do all the mailers. One of my friends sent me a house, happens to be their aunt's house. I'm closing on it today. I'm actually leaving here to go sign the docs. I'm buying a house in Woodcrest for $250, Cherry Hill. Turns out that I actually sold the property before I renovated it. So I bought it for $250, selling it for $350 in 30 days. I've already got the contract signed.
My man.
But here's the thing. That came out of an organic lead that they wouldn't have thought of me if I wasn't forefront in mind because of social media. And what's interesting, even more interesting about it is, you tell them the truth about what you're going to do. I was like, look, here's the deal. I'm going to buy this house and I'm going to flip it. Somebody that I had a buyer that I told him, like, look, I'm going to flip this property and I'm going to make the same spread, but at the same time, if you want it, I'll sell it to you. You could probably do the kitchen and still move in right now. Guess what? I sold it to one of my clients.
Beautiful.
They didn't have to pay a commission. I saved my friend who found me the deal. The mom didn't pay a commission because I ended up buying it from her, so she made more money. Everybody made more money. Like it was just the perfect thing that came off of social media, just because of organically being myself.
Yep.
And that's, I just think that is probably the most important lesson somebody can have. You've got to be comfortable in your own skin, but you also have to understand being authentic is way more important than what other people think, because you're always going to have people that are going to be negatively casting doubt in your head because of the things that they say to you in person or behind your back.
Yep.
At the end of the day, the best thing to do is drown out the noise and surround yourself with like-minded people that are going to be in your corner.
Yeah, which we could probably rap about that for an hour. Just the fact of being in company of other people that are or desire to be high achievers.
Correct.
Right? It's one of the most important things, hands down.
Yeah, and ego is a big thing in our business, unfortunately. Like, I've got friends right now that are I'm a little nervous for them. Like, they're good friends, and they're like, I want to be the biggest buyer in South Jersey. I want to do this or do that. And, I ask them, I'm like, well, why? Like, we're in a recessionary market, in my opinion, where there's an uneasiness feeling that I'm feeling, and I know you're feeling it. Why would you put yourself in a position with that kind of pressure, especially if the market does hit another bottom in the near future? Real estate's obviously always getting hit first. That's why we're feeling it. But you put that kind of pressure on yourself when you're already feeling a financial pressure, and you're working yourself into a corner that it could be catastrophic for your business.
It could.
Right?
It could.
But you and I both see it. I'm sure you have your go-to buyers, that buy. Some you're probably thinking are probably over leveraged. Others are kind of can afford it, you know, and you have some concerns about these people because they may not just be transactional acquaintances; they're friends. Mm-hmm. You and I are never going to be like, yo, you probably shouldn't do this. But sometimes you do have that conversation per se and just say, listen, I just want you to be weary. Be a little bit more conservative. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure that we're going to see some of our friends in the next couple years hurt.
Yeah. There's no question.
I'm already seeing it. I know a lot of people that have voiced concern, and I'm concerned for them. I'm concerned for the market. I'm concerned for agents that I know. Some of the top agents are going to drop. I already know it. The ones that don't have sustainable business, or they're successful in their own right and have a lot of referrals, but they don't have the skill set and resources to sustain going forward.
Yeah. That just made me think of something. So, like, what's your take on, like, the resilient side of everything? Because I guess what I just thought of there is, like you just shared, like, the last year wasn't great for you. And I've shared a bunch of times, like, over the last year, that last year was fucking brutal for me, man. Like, it was terrible, right? Like, some of my closest friends that actually kind of knew, like, all the inner workings of the different things that were going on, man, they came to me. And just like you said, and it's a weird and uncomfortable thing when you have to go to somebody close to you and be like, hey, just letting you know, like, you should be careful. Like, I'm coming to you as a friend. Yeah. Like, I don't mean any negativity by this, but, just be careful, right? I had a couple people come to me and they're like, dude, I got to be honest. If I dealt with that stuff, like, I would have fucking quit. Like, I would have quit. I would have curled up in a ball and I would have just been depressed and,
We hear that so often. You and I and many of other people in our business, dude, we get throat punched for a living. I don't think people realize how many, we're dealing with hardship sellers all the time, day in, day out, that are in some of the worst positions anybody can imagine being in. And our job is to solve their problem and do it with a smile to a certain extent.
Yep.
The empathy and sympathy that goes into doing those things is an overwhelming feeling and an unfortunately concept that people just don't understand.
Yeah, it's totally thankless as well.
Correct.
On top of everything.
We may get somebody to the closing table and save their ass and still get beaten up verbally the whole way. And it just had that recently on just about every deal. I'm getting throat punched this year consistently where deals are dying because of other agents or people dropping the ball outside of my control, right?
Yep.
So it's like these things that people don't realize, but they constantly tell us, well, I would never do that, or I don't know how you're still standing on your feet,
Yeah.
Mark Ricci told me that in the history of him being in this business, he's been in the business 21, 22 years, he's never seen somebody get his ass kicked as bad as I have the last 3 months. He's like, dude, I don't know how you're still standing. Most agents would have, I could go into that, but like the hardship that you're talking about is just something that nobody talks about.
But so that's what I was thinking about as you were kind of talking about that is, I think I feel the same way as you when I look at the industry as a whole. And it's like, it saddens me, right? That a lot of people are going to leave the industry. A lot of people are going to be hurt as a result of it. You know, like, who knows, like how deep the impact will be.
Right.
But there's also another piece of me that it's like, well, that pain is necessary.
Correct.
To a large degree. But I think I look at it from other people, and maybe this is just like my internal ego being like, oh, I can take more punches than anybody else. Like, I don't want anybody else to have to deal with that, but I did. I don't know. I think there's a necessity to it, right? Like, you have to get your ass kicked sometimes and everything. Like, last year sucked, but I don't know. I can't fully say that I wouldn't have changed anything if I could, but I do appreciate it. You know, as weird as that sounds, like wheels fell off on a lot of things, but I appreciate it.
Well, it's growth.
For, what I've learned as a result of it, what I've found out about myself and everything as a result of it and everything. And for what it's worth, I'm still here, dude. I'm doing it, man.
The amount of resiliency it takes to stand here and talk about it, as you said before, is just a testament to how strong you were going through it. But, we learn about ourselves, we grow because of it, and we also figure out where we need to position ourselves going forward and readjust and evolve to adapt to the next challenge that's similar. You're going to handle it better. But the other part about this is the resiliency that I think you're going to see, and the necessity that we're going to end up finding that how essential what's going on is to the changing landscape of the market simply is going to come down to one thing. The market needs a cleanse. And I hate to say that, but the level of skill that should be in this industry that is not is appalling. And at least on the agent side, the positive thing that's going to come out of this is that there are going to be people that get hurt, just like in any recessionary market or shifting market. And there are people that leave and go take up a new industry, job, career, whatever it may be. It creates more opportunity for the people that are at the top. And the people that are trying to climb to the top can weasel their way into the top because of those people leaving. Yeah. It's a cycle that we're just along for the ride on, And it really, not to go back to what you said about who could take the most punches. Maybe it's an ego thing. Maybe it's not. I don't think it is. I think it's more understanding yourself. And for me, at least, that resonates because I can say that I know I'm going to be one of the people here. Instead of spending the money that I spent over the course of the last 5 years, which was the most money I've ever made in a 5-year period, I put a lot of it into my SEP. I took out a $4 million life insurance policy for me, some for my wife. It cost me $7-8 grand a year. I bought 15 rental properties, doors, I made sure that I took out 2 home equity lines of credit, so I have about $500,000 liquid for investing, flips, this, that, and the other at all given times. I did what I hope any agent that watches this does, or person watches this who's in our space. And I created a level of insulation between me and the volatility in the market, as well as me and what's the best way to put it? And financial ruin.
Can't control. Yeah,
things that I can't control. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say. Like the importance of taking advantage of when things are good, when you're in a feast or famine business, is the only way that you survive markets like this. Mm-hmm. The only way. If you just spend all your money that comes in and treat this like a paycheck, you're going to be fucked and you're not going to know what hit you. Yep. When you're down and out, you're not going to know why.
Yep.
Hindsight's 20/20. It's easy to figure out why if you're spending all your money. But people are going to find that this market that we're going into and we are in happened for a reason, and it's going to make us all a lot more money in the long term because just simply there's going to be less agents, probably less wholesalers. specifically because the changes that are already coming. They're cracking down specifically on wholesalers. In certain states, you need to be licensed now. You're gonna have to show the active capital that you have in the account to buy a property. There's all sorts of things that are happening on your side of the business too. So it's not just the agent world that's getting cracked down.
It's change happening everywhere.
Everywhere.
And we didn't touch on it at all, but like AI happening at the same time as all this as well, and again, that's not just surface level talking about the real estate industry.
Yeah.
It's going to disrupt and displace a lot of jobs.
Correct.
And not like a lot of people think it's 5 years down the road. There's already a lot of change that's happened as a result of it, and that's going to make change in the real estate market as well, I
think the best part about it though, at least talking for you and I and like other people that are in positions like us, like, the AI is great, but it needs a user.
Yeah.
It needs somebody controlling it.
Yep.
So long as guys and girls like us are able to excel and execute at a high level, there will always be a means for people like us to be necessary.
What's the root of that? What you just said right there, execute at a high level in what?
I think specifically the real estate space, but in any industry, it's reputable.
Let me take that a step further.
Go for it.
Communication.
Yes.
Fucking communication, man. Because ultimately, what we do on the wholesale side, and I'm sure you can relate on the retail side, the transactional stuff, there's no special sauce to that, right? Like we were talking about, I'll share my playbook. There's no special sauce to that.
Correct.
There's not. AI can replicate everything that you do and I do from a transactional perspective tomorrow. What it can't replicate is the user experience or the customer experience or the relationship. So people that excel at communication, in my opinion, have the most resilience against any change that's going to happen, hands down, because it doesn't matter what the change is.
I completely
At the end of the day, people need to interact with other people.
Yeah.
So who knows what the landscape of the real estate market or any other industry looks like 5 years from now. But I can tell you one thing for sure. People are still going to need to interact and communicate with people.
You know what's so unique? You just made me think of something that's scary about the future of our country. With all the kids that are on social media and not interacting face-to-face with people, like, are we the last generation of like customer service-oriented real estate professionals?
It's a great question.
Like, does it get more awkward in 10 to 15 years when the kids that are growing up sitting behind, at 5 years old, parents are working and they're preoccupied on a tablet, not interacting and learning how to have social skills?
Yep.
Like, does that have an impact on the not just real estate market, but the actual ability to communicate?
Of course it does.
With other people.
Of course it does. On the flip side, though, for the very few at that point that do, presents a massive opportunity for them. Correct. Massive opportunity. Correct. But still, like when you're talking mass economies of scale at that point, talking about, hundreds of millions of children that are growing up today, what will that look like? I don't know, man. It's a crazy, scary thing.
We grew up walking, out the door and being, my parents were like, go outside and play.
Yep.
Throw the ball.
All day.
All day. I was out back, I was in the yard playing. I was in the street riding my bike, up at school hitting baseballs at the elementary school, whatever it was. I was never in the house, It's just a whole nother landscape of life, man. I don't know. It's going to be weird. I mean, I got my daughter coming in June, so it's going to be, I'm about to be telling her to get outside, get off your phone.
No, and that's a perfect segue because I just want to ask you this last question. Yeah. Like, what is really like, what's next for you, obviously, other than having a child, like from a professional perspective, like next goals that you have, next things you want to accomplish, next?
It's a good question. Really, I think my next goal right now, I have lacked focus on building my own personal buy and hold portfolio. Talking about my financials, my financial advisor and this and that, had a conversation with him a couple of weeks ago, and he said, listen, he goes, you've got some really successful partnerships. Like, you've done really well, and you're buying into a business, this, that, and the other. But put it in your own, go buy a couple pieces of property specifically in you and Jen's portfolio. You've already got some, go get more. That's pretty much what it is. So I want to grow I want to probably in the next 6 to 12 months try to take down 3 deals. I think try to get as clean of a deal that I could which may present an opportunity for you. I'm not only looking in Jersey. I'd like to just be in a good area.
Yep.
But
Perfect.
you know, really trying to take down a couple deals in my own portfolio. That's my near goal.
Okay.
I guess the only other one is, you know, I wanna have a bigger, you know, with Primarily Partners doing what it's been doing. I mean, we're bringing on one of the biggest agent teams that we've ever brought on in the next couple. We've already got some of those agents trickling in as we're segueing them into the company. You know, I think Mark and I, it's a joint goal of maybe 150 agents by the end of this year. I think we're probably going to be at 125 by July. Super proud of that number because we still give individual attention to every single one, which is very difficult to do. We run a different model. So I really think my other goal is 150 agents. We want the ability to keep growing this thing, man.
Dude, I love that. That's awesome. And I know that, you know, regardless of what the world does, what the economy does, you've got that in you. You've got that fire in you.
Yeah,
you've got that
man.
grit. You've got that perseverance. You're going to make this shit happen no matter what happens, man. I love that. And I'm excited to continue watching on the journey. Where can people find you if they don't already know you?
All right. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's at Robert Bunis Realtor. Search me, Rob Bunis, on Facebook, just because that's where you're going to find the fun stuff. And if
the good posts.
Yeah, the good posts. I don't have as much entertaining stuff on any other platform, but those are the two. RobBunisBroker@gmail.com. And if you want to call me, 609-220-6311. Call me if you're an agent looking for help or just somebody that wants to have a conversation, pick my brain. I'm a giver. I'm just one of these people who's always going to help. So
beautiful. Love it, brother. This has been an awesome
Yeah,
conversation.
man, dude.
Appreciate having you, man.
Thanks for having me on, man. This has been a good time.
Love it, man.
Yeah.